Hi, this video is about will AI take your job? Sort of if, when, how, and also sort of what you can do about it as well. So I could add what there. But let's just jump right in, and I'll say that all of the images here have been created with Midjourney 5, not with like a lot of smart prompt engineering, just with sometimes I had no idea what to put, so I just put something real simple and then I upscaled the best one. Okay, so let's look at some of the historical patterns of major technological advances, and to give us some context for what they did, because I think there's a lot of insight into how they were received and what people said about them, like right as they were happening, can give us a lot of insight into expecting what to happen. Interesting note: this guy has 3 hands, so it's a one sign of AI art when like some of these details are just like wrong. Like a human would probably never draw one like that. So I mean, we can go all the way back to the wheel. I don't really know a whole lot about that, so I'm just gonna put that on there. Printing press was one of the most common accepted major technological advancements that had a huge effect on human society, and just because it allowed more people to communicate with each other. So really, like so why did that add value to society? Because it allowed people to communicate at a much higher level. Just going to a higher scale created different opportunities. It's a little bit like if you envision if you could only walk places versus fly. Like now that we can fly. Like if you could only walk places, I'm in Texas. How am I going to get to New Zealand? I'm just not. In my entire lifetime, I'm just not. So it opens up new avenues, and it just makes things possible. Or like, if you wanted to if I wanted to go to the beach for like a weekend, if I had to walk somewhere, I'm in Dallas, I wouldn't be able to do that. Like it just wouldn't. It's just not feasible, and it would never happen. And so it's the same thing with the printing press. Just by going up a scale and allowing things to be made much, much faster and allowing more people to get information. A lot like the internet. The internet was compared to the printing press. And in a lot of ways, the internet was similar to the printing press, but it obviously did way more. Electricity, and this isn't like an all-inclusive list. This is just some major things. This powers everything. Actually, if you read down this, almost everything above powers everything below. I'm putting like industrial innovation sort of on here because this is another kind of scale thing, and there's not can't really think of any one thing that did it all, but there was just a series of several things that allowed us to do more as a production from a production standpoint for society. Flight was pretty cool. One interesting thing to learn about flight is it's sort of this is comparable to self-driving cars right now. It kind of didn't work until it did, and what we started off with was bird-like flapping of the wings, which makes no sense now that we know the physics of it and understand the physics of that. But it's a great example of it just doesn't work until it does. And I think that's what's going to happen with self-driving cars are pretty close to there now. I have a Tesla with full self-driving. It has its issues. It's not perfect. It's definitely not there now, but I definitely think that there will come a time where just kind of, not overnight, but over a very short period of time, I'll be like, oh, it's here. Sort of like what AI has done just since ChatGPT came out. Computers, obviously huge. This is Bill Gates' thing. He said the graphical user interface was huge. I think it just allowed people to interact with a computer in a much more intuitive, non-programming way. Obviously, the internet, to me, this is probably only one of the few things that can actually compete with artificial intelligence in terms of how impactful it will be to society. But I think artificial intelligence will be bigger than everything else. Part of that is it's leveraging all of this stuff up here. Artificial intelligence is literally using all of these things in a sense. And it couldn't have existed without, obviously, computers or internet, maybe even without cell phones or GUI or whatever, without electricity. But why was the internet so powerful? And so part of this is communication. You have email, and the ability to put a blog up and for other people to get on there. But it's more, and the scale of it, but it's also the efficiency of it. The efficiency of sending, so think about the cost to human labor of sending a letter from Texas to London, right? That's a huge cost versus sending an email. The cost is almost nothing, basically nothing for all practical purposes. In bulk, it's still significant, but on a per unit basis, it's basically nothing. And so this is value captured, or it is reduction in human labor needed. Oftentimes we can kind of choose one or the other, and sometimes it's we have to, there's no choice. It's just reduction or increasing. Cell phones, again, allowing us to communicate, but also these are very Star Trek-y devices, allowing us to search the internet anywhere. Anytime no matter where you are, you can always know when Kevin Bacon's birthday is, and look it up. So cell phones are pretty amazing, especially when combination with the internet. So, what are some of these patterns that are in artificial intelligence? First of all, it clearly has the ability to reduce the need for human labor in a lot of areas. It also clearly has the ability to just do things that we couldn't do otherwise. And I think I'm gonna cover those in pretty great detail throughout the rest of the video. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on. We're already at 6 minutes and only in the first one. Okay, let's look at the signs of a major tech advancement. This is supposed to be like a Nordic woman reading the signs. First of all, you just kind of have to model the implications of what happens if this works, or what does it actually work, and kind of look for value. That's the best way to put it, or again, kind of reduced human need or added value. So human action reductions and human action amplifiers. This is kind of my way of putting those two things that I think I talked about pretty extensively just a second ago. So also, again, just look at the historical patterns. Really think about, I could probably have a whole video on, all the different ways in which this added value or reduced human action need. So just kind of considering all those, and you can look at the signs. Also, you can look at the signs of things that went flop. So like blockchain, sort of. And to be clear, I don't think the book is necessarily finally written on blockchain, but I think at this point, with the current level of technology, maybe it needs some other pieces of technology to really get the full value out of it. But with the current technology, blockchain is pretty disappointing. And people got really excited about it, and then they got mad at it, and they got excited about it, and rinse and repeat probably 4 or 5 times, I don't know. And AI, to some degree, has had a little bit of this. AI has been around for a long time and has had some advancements. But this one feels very, very different in terms of its ability to do things that actually can amplify human actions or reduce the need for human actions. But again, there's a lot of red herrings where people come out and be like, this technology is going to change the world. And it's like, no, it's not really. That happens all the time. And so you do kind of have to be aware of that. Okay, what is AI currently good at? And this is not meant to be an exhaustive list because there's a lot. This is part of why it's like, yeah, this does a lot. And there's a lot of areas that this will touch. There's so many things. Summarization from a coding standpoint, allowing a program to call an AI model and get back a summarization very quickly and inexpensively is extremely awesome. This is something that you really couldn't do before, at least not in any efficient way or capable way. Maybe if you had like a super narrow case or it was all numbers or something you could summarize, but from like summarizing a block of random text of a wide variety, you just couldn't do it before. This is actually pretty useful in terms of managing data, the ability to call the API, keep the original information, but then package it in a smaller bite size. That's actually very useful. Logic, it already was pretty good at logic, but GPT-4 logic is really, really good. Like its ability to correctly get, mind-bending puzzles that it's very hard for even a human to get. Like it excels at this a lot. Like it does this really, really, really well. And just following like reasoning and center, like maybe just do like logic and reasoning. It's kind of two sides of the same coin. And ironically, poems, which maybe is like a subset of art here, because there's also, graphics or images. We'll just do images, video, audio, all of these things will be affected by AI. AI is very good at these things. Really, actually, this kind of makes sense because it's like these are all patterns, and the AI is like pattern recognizing, pattern building, so it takes other patterns and creates new patterns. And you can see this AI art. Like I could never draw any of these things, or they're just really really awesome. And so it's actually really good at a lot of these things. Data analysis is fantastic at, if you can, especially with GPT-4 now, you give it a bunch of data and you can say, how many English sounding names, give it a list of, 500 names, and how many of these are English sounding, or there's a whole bunch of different possibilities with data analysis, especially with ChatGPT plugins. One of their plugins, I can't remember what the name of it is, that allows you to scan a large amount of data. This is really really exciting. The ability to quickly and efficiently analyze a lot of data without having to build like a structure around it. Pattern recognition. I mean, this is kind of what it does. I really like it for brainstorming. I like starting something with just brainstorm, and you can give it a certain amount. Usually it'll give a pretty good amount, but if you want to give a specific amount, brainstorm 20 ways to do that, to do X. That's really good. And there's just so much more. I can't list it all right here because there's just a lot. What is it currently bad at, but will get good at? I think being told not to do something, if you tell it, don't use the word the, it'll still use the word the, at least last time I tested it. Maybe it's improved. But I think they'll get this. But this is also a sign for like how it really works and how there are some holes in it. Ironically, it is very bad at math. And that's part of why, these are large language models. The language in there is key. The fundamental way that they are built, even though it does use lots and lots of kind of advanced math to some degree, or it's not advanced, but it uses some math to build these things and to run these things. There's a lot of math and data, but it's using math and data to reproduce language essentially, and all the structures that go around language, which does include math, but math is kind of separate. But again, I think that it'll get this. And right now, even with the Wolfram Alpha, I think, plug-in to ChatGPT that's coming soon, or some people already have it, then it does math fine. And so it just kind of outsourced the math, but I think eventually it probably won't even need to do that. Also, it's still pretty bad at, there's situations where you want to pull from a lot of different context, and it's not very good at that yet. I think it's getting better at it, and it might have trouble with this for a long time, and humans have trouble with this, so it's not like the end of the world, but it's something that's not good at. Okay, what is AI currently bad at that is unlikely to good at? I can't think of anything. I'm just going to be honest here. I think it will be good at almost everything. There's almost nothing that it won't be able to do, especially when you combine it with actual physical robots. What will it be capable of? Almost anything. But that doesn't mean that a single robot will be capable of everything. Just holistically in different ways. I think there'll be a bunch of different AIs out there that are specialized, and along with ones that are more general and still useful in more general context, but then ones that are very specific. So I think I shot another video on that. Economic patterns. So I want to mention that my background is in data. I've been basically dealing with data professionally and information and efficiency in a variety of forms for about 20 years now. And so I do think this is it's a strength of mine. And I've got something I'm calling economy physics, I don't know, economics and physics together. That is a little bit of my own theory on how the mathematical patterns of the universe are typically formed. And I'm calling these patterns kind of semi-natural. There are natural patterns that occur, like the leaf, the pattern of a tree, the pattern of the waves on the water. That's very heavy math. But then there are like kind of human-made patterns, but that still kind of have some natural structure to them. That's kind of what I'm talking about here, and I consider like an economic pattern, like the stock market, to be that. But they follow certain rules that when you can extract those rules out, you can actually use them in a lot of other areas, especially in like the evaluating at the very first major bullet what technological advancements there really are. Here's something, if you haven't taken advanced math, just know that a lot of like patterns look to be straight lines, and they're not. The math of the universe is nonlinear, which is essentially it's not straight lines. It's squirrely. It goes in all sorts of ways that you wouldn't think possible. Think, oh, well, it's a straight line. Maybe it's just like the kind of natural curve. Even that is not very common. It's mostly, it goes all over the place, and it's multidimensional, and there's just a lot of different angles for data to kind of flow into and out of, so to speak. There's not really a better way for me to put it other than that. It's hard to really get this unless you like actually used calculus in an applied way, like in physics or something, or in engineering, or in machine learning or something. It's kind of hard to understand, but the natural mathematical distributions of the universe are pretty much never straight lines. But over short periods, they can appear to be straight lines. I'm going to talk about these two together. So if you look at the stock market over the last 100 years and the patterns that have come about from it, and what is it that, so it has grown exponentially. Just broadly speaking, it just if you graph it on a logarithmic scale, which means it's each level up is 10x, then it's almost like a straight line up, which it's not really a straight line because it's more like a curve that keeps getting stronger and stronger. Why does that happen? That happens because of the value add that I talked about above, the value add and the human reduction. Usually we choose with a human reduction to add human value elsewhere, so that's why sometimes people just work the same amount even though the value's there. But this comes about from amplifiers on human value. For example, with the internet and email I talked about before, that added value is an amplifier on like everything. Think about it, like, not everybody uses email, but a very large amount of the world uses email, and in a very efficient way. Again, think about a more efficient way to get a message to somebody who's across the world. Or even just a couple miles down the road, email is still oftentimes very efficient. And when we tie this back into AI, the economic pattern that I think is going to come out of this is a huge amplifier on so much of society and human endeavor. So, what industries with the biggest fattest bites taken out of them or value adds? So this is kind of getting to the fundamental question a lot of people have, like, will my job be taken? And hopefully by now you're getting the understanding that it's more likely for a lot of people. Well, there's going to be different groups of people. There's going to be people where their job just isn't needed anymore. Like in 5 years, the job is going to be gone. Okay, there are some, but more for a lot of people, it's going to be their job is going to change, and they're going to be able to add more value with their job, doing things differently and integrating into AI. And then there's sort of a middle ground between those, where there's some people where they're going to need to use AI to be better, and there's going to be a reduced need. Or in the case of medical, it's just going to be like, oh, actually, we're going to just catch up to where we should be. like maybe there was already a deficiency in your area, like again with medical and computer science, maybe to some degree, and maybe even artists. And so, in that sense, it's hard to say exactly where each industry will fall, because I do think that even if there is massive value that the AI adds very quickly to an industry, that there is still, for a very long time, there will need to be people behind that AI to manage it and oversee it to some degree and influence, or at least just kind of like, figure out how to steer it. Maybe that's all they need to do, is just a little bit of steering here and there. And even if AI does all the surgeries for a certain thing, 100% of them are done by an AI, there still need to be doctors around that checking on it and confirming it and looking at it. And it's not going to be perfect. So if something goes wrong, well, now what do? We need doctors as part of that. Or if a new disease pops up, there's always going to be need for doctors. Plus, there's just not enough doctors. But these are just sort of, basically, it's actually white collar. So interestingly, most of the time in the past, it's been actually the more lower skilled jobs that, I don't know if I'm saying that blue collar or white collar are more or less skilled. I think technically that considered white collar to be a little bit more skilled, but I'm not sure that's always true. But let's just look at typically the more labor intensive, less skilled jobs get taken by technology first, and the higher skilled jobs just get better or maybe even creates new high skilled jobs that didn't exist before. I think this is actually working in the opposite direction, and just due to the nature of where AI adds the value, which is very interesting, and also, I think it will get down to everything eventually. It's just more about like time, how long will it take, and where will it hit first. So that's kind of a better way to look at it, because I don't want to just like list all the industries. There's just so much variety, and there's just going to touch everything almost immediately. It's just more about like which one will it touch more and which one will it affect more. How to win with AI, no matter what your industry is. A few simple tips, and then I'll leave it. We're already at 20 minutes. Study your industry plus AI. Consider your industry within the context of how AI will affect it. Try to understand a little bit like what AI does and where the value is added, and then go from there. There's a philosophy of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. If you're saying, and hopefully if you're with me right now, you're probably most likely have a growth mindset, but if there is somebody with a fixed mindset, or maybe just someone's highlighting it, there's sort of like this idea that this is what I'm good at, and that's what I'm good at, period, which is really incorrect for a human unless you let it be correct. If you're even remotely able-mindedness, then you can learn new things, you can get better, you can grow. There's always room to grow. Even if you think you're the most awesome person in the world or the worst person in the world, there's always room to grow. And I would say start now. So start doing that immediately. Start focusing in on that, really start planning and thinking where you think your industry will go and what AI will do to it. And then again, use that information to grow into that area. So when your industry is affected by AI, you will be fine. You will actually rise to the top, and you will probably get big money raises. It'll be beneficial to you. Yes, I do understand that some people will be reduced, like their need to work will be reduced. And I am hoping that there is some amount, if that really goes really far, which I think it will pretty quickly, to where a lot of people just aren't needed to work, they don't need to work, that there is sort of like a universal income type of thing. So people don't have to work if they don't need to. If there's enough economic productivity per human, then there shouldn't be that need for everybody, and then they can explore whatever they want. And I think that there's a lot of people just want to contribute. So I'll still work even if I don't have to, because I like it. I like contributing. I like thinking about things. I like solving problems. And there's a lot of people out there like that. And the other people who are just don't want to work or want to do other things, they're probably already kind of mentally doing that anyways. So thanks for watching. Like this video if you like it. Leave a comment below if you have any ideas, and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.